My panel is back with me, Brendan Buck, LaTosha Brown, Tia Mitchell. LaTosha, I'm going to go to you. What do you make of what Donald Trump just said and did about President Biden?
I think it's consistent with his character. There's no floor for him. There's consistent with his character. He's constantly in a space of making fun of people. He's constantly in a space of being negative. So I think that this is pretty much what we've seen with Donald Trump for the last few years. I think what is really interesting is what I thought was a highlight of what President Biden did in his speech was really around voting rights. That the fact that he actually, I think, lifted up a commitment to passing both the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, both of those things, we need those because of the actions right here in the state of Georgia of people like President Trump and what he did.
Brendan, I wanted to talk to you about the fact that we now have an election denier who is going to be the chair of the Republican National Committee. And then you have Laura Trump, which is Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, who's going to be the co-chair. She has no experience doing that. I mean, what does it say to you about the fact that their RNC now has two hand-picked heads, handpicked by Trump, to be able to pretty much maybe create a personal piggy bank of the RNC for him?
Well, I'll say two things. One, it is actually not unusual at all for the incoming nominee or a former president, I guess in this case, to control the RNC. I mean, it is effectively becomes the nominee's campaign committee. What is not normal is having that committee pay the person's enormous legal bills and do things that do not advance the party, but purely advance one person's personal interests. And that's where the huge issue is. And it's not as though Ronna McDaniel, the person who just left, was some kind of never Trumper. I mean, she was supporting him pretty significantly. But I think this is just a reminder that in the new, the second time around, or I don't know, third time around, there is no real resistance to Donald Trump anywhere within the Republican Party ecosystem. Everybody is going to be on Team Trump and going with whatever he happens to do or say, no matter how unethical or unseemly it may be.
And in light of that, Tia, ahead of Trump's speech in Rome, Georgia today, the DNC placed 4 billboards in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, directly blaming former President Donald Trump for tanking that bipartisan border security bill last month. Do you think that that is a successful strategy to have any effect on voters in that particular district?
So that district is a pretty ruby red district, but I think the billboards are less about convincing voters, particularly voters who may be on their way to or from, a Trump rally. But I think it serves, again, we're talking about it. Other people across Georgia can be talking about it. And I think they are, number one, making sure that voters remember that Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene are very aligned. We know how polarizing she is, possibly even more so than he is in certain pockets of the country. But I think also it's a little bit of a troll as President Trump makes his way to Rome. I think that clip we saw of Trump, that's what the Biden campaign wants Trump to be doing. They want to see him, attacking his enemies, making fun of people, saying things in sound bites that voters in swing districts and swing states would find problematic or troubling or not presidential. So I think in this way, they're trying to bait him to respond, hoping that response will help make the contrast that the Biden campaign is hoping to make.
LaTosha, we got our hands on the prepared rally remarks for Donald Trump in Rome, Georgia. It's what he's kind of talking about right now. And one thing that he had in these prepared rally remarks was the following quote: "We will restore law and order to our country." My footnote, kind of ironic coming from somebody who's been indicted 4 times. But this is what he says: "I am going to indemnify all police officers and law enforcement officials throughout the United States to protect them from being destroyed by the radical left for taking strong actions on crime." LaTosha, your thoughts about a promise from Donald Trump to, quote, indemnify all police officers and law enforcement officials throughout the United States. I foresee, if that were to happen, an incredibly violent and destructive world for all Americans and not just for a particular subset of Americans.
Oh, absolutely. He is telling us right in our faces that he is literally a fascist. He's telling us that he wants to turn this nation into a police state. He is telling us that he will disregard the rule of law and literally use his power and think of himself as a dictator, to actually weaponize the police force instead of seeing it as a safety and security for people, that in fact that he will weaponize them against communities and people. He's a dangerous man. I think that it should be loud and clear that Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to this nation and to the democracy.
Brendan, I want to play for you President Biden's latest campaign ad where he directly addresses concerns that some may have about his age. Take a listen.
Look, I'm not a young guy. That's no secret. But here's the deal. I understand how to get things done for the American people. I led the country through the COVID crisis. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world. I passed a law that lowers prescription drug prices, caps insulin at $35 a month for seniors. For 4 years, Donald Trump tried to pass an infrastructure law, and he failed. I got it done. Now we're rebuilding America.
Brendan, it wasn't the only time that he's leaned into the age issue. I'll put that in quotes. Talked about it at the State of the Union, saying, I've been around, but it also lets me know how to get things done. Is this the right approach for President Biden and his team going into the 2024 elections?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think they probably would have liked to have not had to gone here. But poll after poll after poll shows not just Republicans, not just independents, but even Democrats have concerns about his age. And, you know, people have tried to say, this is some kind of invention of the right, or look how old Donald Trump is. I mean, you can tell yourself that, but real people are concerned about this. And so they had to take it on. I think he did himself a lot of favors in the State of the Union. I mean, he addressed it late in the speech. And I think by that point, it almost felt unnecessary because people saw that he was pretty energetic and he was able to go toe-to-toe with members of Congress who were jeering with him. I think what he did in the State of the Union will buy him some real time on this, where maybe the media narrative around this will die down a little bit, and that could be helpful for him in polling.
I want to thank my incredible panel of Brendan Buck, LaTosha Brown, and Tia Mitchell for rolling with us and responding and reacting in real time to that incredible interview by Jonathan Capehart of President Biden. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you.